fossil fuels, but the outcome of the summit falls short of expectations. Here's some more coming up after the news update.
The Lagos State government says it will strive to ensure the state meets the sanitation targets of the Sustainable Development Goals by the year 2030. Commissioner for the Environment, Tokunbo Wahab, said this at the staff retreat targeted at implementing the state's 5-year roadmap strategic action plan for the sanitation sector. He called on relevant agencies and stakeholders in the sanitation sector to create pathways that would set new standards in wastewater management.
To whom much is given, so much more is expected. And part of that narrative is why we're having the Juspong Zoom Lion MOU. Government cannot run some things on its own. Government should create the enabling environment for those things to thrive without also affecting the structure of LASWAMO as a regulator. And we are at the advanced stage for the Zoom Lion Juspong MOU. We are looking at the numbers, we are crunching the numbers, but we shall not put the state in a disadvantaged position also.
The vision is very clear. Where we want to get to is very clear. But the question is, are you willing to go with us? Are you ready to get to that destination? Do you even see the destination? I want us to utilize this critical period to set the agenda, to make sure that we set the bus road.
Capacity of agencies within the water sector. LASWAMO has topped the chart, leading the group as of now. We came from a percentage of 17.6% efficiency as of 2023. Today, we are at 39.6%, sir.
In 2022, Lagos State introduced an ambitious 30-year development plan to position itself as a global model for sustainable urban development. This plan prioritizes key sectors such as transportation, renewable energy, and waste management to create a cleaner, greener Lagos. At this UN Climate Conference, the state took its climate commitment further by signing the Global Cooling Pledge, signaling its readiness to implement measures that reduce harmful emissions while supporting Nigeria's broader climate goals.
This momentous occasion will serve as a catalyst for achieving the objectives of our state's climate action plan and resilience strategy. It reinforces our contributions to Nigeria's nationally determined contributions and aligns with the global ambition of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees.
Cooling-related emissions driven by energy-intensive systems in urban areas are a major contributor to global warming. For Lagos, this initiative is a chance to lead by example, showcasing how cities can implement innovative climate solutions while improving quality of life for residents. The operational cost of waste management remains a significant challenge for a rapidly growing city like Lagos. To address this issue, the Lagos State government organized an interactive session with the international community during the Climate Summit. The discussions focused on strategies to manage waste more effectively and reduce methane emissions, a major contributor to climate change.
I think the international community, especially in terms of development finance, needs to support more on the operational cost side of waste infrastructure, which is currently lacking. So we are looking at how to, gather like-minded, donors and philanthropies to put into more financing to financing operational costs of waste infrastructure. And when we have that ready, we can support cities like Lagos in the long run, not just to build the infrastructure, but to run it properly for 15 to 20 years.
They are going to, what we expect is partnership and financing. And what we have pushed for is that we've laid out the LCAP initiative, the Lagos State Climate Adaptation and Resilience Plan, to them that this is what plan we have. It's not just that we are doing talk shop. We are ready to take in whatever investment that you want to put in our domain, and we have an enabling environment for your investment to thrive and to get a good return on whatever you have invested in Lagos.
Is to make sure that the public, all of us...
A panel of climate advocates and green energy experts have come together to discuss innovative solutions aimed at promoting sustainability, green jobs and a thriving green economy. The panel delved into the role of technology and innovation in advancing sustainable economic growth, highlighting practical steps to address climate challenges while creating economic opportunities.
Our biggest natural resource is the human resource. Who is working on human capacity development, especially in these particular areas? We know, as we continue to harp on about the fact that by 2030, 30 million jobs will be obsolete. How are we positioning the Nigerian workforce for this particular challenge that will soon come upon us?
There are high unemployment rates in Africa. It can reach to 30% in some countries, and there is a gap, and green jobs can fit in this gap and minimize it a little bit. So we need to build the capacity of current use and also localize the knowledge to fit the African context.
There is money to be made, there are skills, there's work to be done, and that it can involve everybody, and that's what we have to do to get a better future.
World leaders gathered in Baku, Azerbaijan for the 29th United Nations Climate Summit. After 2 weeks of intense negotiations, rich countries have pledged $300 billion annually by 2035 to help poorer nations combat climate change, triple the previous $100 billion commitment. While this is a significant increase, many developing nations have criticized the deal as falling far short of what's needed to address the scale of the crisis.
Taking the lead. This is an insult to what the convention says. Should I remind us of what the convention says? That it noted that developed countries had the largest share of historical and current global emissions. This might be 1994, but it's still very current till now. It also said that the developed countries will take the lead, and this lead is climate finance. That the developing country is saying that it's taking the lead with $300 billion till 2035 is a joke.
We are extremely disappointed at the lack of progress on issues critical to Africa. We remind all that Africa's share for global emissions remains negligible. If the world overshoots the 1.5 degrees goal, it will not be because of Africa, and yet it is Africa that stands to bear the brunt of that failure.
The proposed goal shall not solve anything for us. In fact, we have to implement ambitious indices and economic challenges that we need to navigate and address the adaptation needs. The amount that is proposed to be mobilized is abysmally poor. It's a paltry sum. It is not something that will enable conducive climate action that is necessary for the survival of our country and for the growth of our people, their livelihoods. And I'm sorry to say that we cannot accept it.
And that's not the only controversial decision at COP29. New rules for carbon credit trading were approved under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. These allow high-emission countries to buy carbon offsets from developing nations. Supporters say this could bring much-needed investments to projects like reforestation and clean energy in poorer countries. But critics warn that without strict oversight, carbon markets could be misused to greenwash polluters' activities, delaying real emissions cut.
Carbon trading, carbon credits is not solving the climate problem. It's only giving the license to polluters to do more, to pollute more. And of course, it's also creating carbon colonialism and carbon slavery in poor countries, where communities are now going to be forced to watch over carbon in trees or in the river or in the soil, instead of being helped to adapt to the crisis they did not create.
Last year at COP28 in Dubai, leaders made history by recognizing the need to phase down coal, oil and gas. This year, however, the language was less direct, simply referencing the Dubai commitment. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev, in his keynote speech, even described fossil fuels as a gift from God, sparking further controversy.
To accuse us that we have oil is the same like to accuse us that we have more than 250 sunny days a year in Baku. Countries should be judged by other criteria. Countries should be judged by other criteria. For instance, level of unemployment in Azerbaijan, it is 5.4%. Level of poverty, it is 5.2%. Our green agenda, I already described our plans. So these are, and many other, important criteria which should be a basis for kind of evaluation of the country's performance, but not the country's natural resources, which are the gift of the God.
So is the global fight against climate change losing momentum? Despite years of agreement, emissions and temperatures continue to rise, with 2024 set to be the hottest year ever recorded.
Look in the country, can you believe that?
Adding to the uncertainty is Donald Trump's return to the global stage. His recent election victory and promises to withdraw the United States from climate efforts have dampened optimism among delegates. The clock is ticking and the stakes couldn't be higher. Can these steps lead to the transformational change the planet desperately needs? Or will history remember Baku as another missed opportunity?
In the meantime, some argue that this year's conference has been more about politics than real progress, with around 1,777 fossil fuel lobbyists attending. And critics say this allowed big polluters to continue business as usual without taking meaningful action.
This COP, like all the other COPs, is another disappointment. From day one, we saw the bulldozing of Article 6.4, that is carbon markets that went through. The failing climate finance commitments that are happening, the hopeless adaptation and mitigation measures that are happening. So it's really clear that these talks, all the climate talks really, are to a business as usual for the global north, to provide a platform to be business as usual for the global north, to continue polluting while the global south is suffering and paying for their own burdens, the burdens of the global north. So that's quite disappointing. Every area of policy is really going south, and that has been happening from year to year. But one thing that gives me hope really is the commitment and the resilience and the solidarity of global south allies who have stood in solidarity with one another to demand for climate justice. They've demanded for climate finance. They've demanded that we keep fossil fuels in the ground. They've demanded that carbon markets are a false solution and they should not be passed. They have demanded that the climate debt should be cancelled, and many other demands that frontline communities, organizations who are here are demanding. So I'm very proud of that, and I'm honored to be part of that movement and standing to amplify the voices of frontlines who are back home, who didn't have an opportunity to come here.
Climate finance are the climate projects, green projects that are being implemented locally in the different communities? How is it contributing to the climate change agenda? Technology, climate smart technology. What projects can the layman easily adapt and not be so confused and affected by, oh, okay, this is too complicated for me, I cannot stay long with it, let them just do and finish, and that's where it ends. So sustainable green projects. So one of them is, that I gave an example, was using compost or organic fertilizers, using the neem tree, dogon yarrow. It's in their community. They don't have to spend money on it. And we even distributed seedling, because we partnered with the Ministry of Environment. So they gave us seedlings and we gave it to them, you know. So that is one. And the other one was the other climate smart technology that I talked about, hydroponics. Now, you know, due to the crisis, a lot of farmers are scared to go to their farms. So we're thinking, why don't we look for a way to bring the farm to them? They can farm in their backyard. I mean, we used to do that back in the day. You know, it's because now the demand, the population demand for food is increasing. So how can we have this? How can we have a lot of greenhouses? And I know that some individuals and private companies are already doing that. In fact, I saw one in Benue that they had about 20 greenhouses, and they are farming strictly for commercial purposes. Yeah.
For Ghana, climate finance is very key. Climate finance is very important because we have several communities that are at the forefront of climate emergency. We have drought here and we have flooding on the other end of the country. And we also have those who are living by the coast constantly having to move or be relocated because of the way the ocean is rising up. So yes, climate finance is very, very important. At the same time, we also have a lot of initiatives implementing policies and actions around NDCs, National Adaptation Planning. All these those commitments that the government have put forward require some form of funding to be able to be executed. And there are several gaps that needs to be fixed. To fix those gaps, you need climate finance, you need global support, and it is very crucial.
Green Angle returns in just a moment. Stay with us. Delegates from Nigeria say they have engaged in meaningful negotiations at the summit to pursue the country's climate action plans and programs. Minister for Regional Development optimistic on the gains of the climate conference, saying it would advance the country's efforts in addressing various issues such as insecurity and unemployment.
You know too well that the causes of this problem, greenhouse gas, are these major industrial countries, and of course they must also be able to put something on the table where developed countries can also tap from. You come to conference in order to be able to attract funding. So if you come to conference without that, it's like a normal jamboree. Because when you are talking of coastal flooding, you know what it means. To address it, to mitigate the impact, a lot of measures that are to be put in place. Because in some of those areas, you need to plant mangrove, you need to do canalization of our water channels, you need to do a lot of deseating, and you also construct a drainage system in order to address some of this problem.
You know, we do the early warnings for all, and that is a UN global, mandate. Nigeria is virtually the, biggest country in Africa that does that every year on a very big scale. Remember, this year we launched, the early warnings for the seasonal climate change and a prediction, and then we published a big pamphlet in respect of that. So, in that respect, and SOF is critical to the actualization of the UN goal of early warnings for all. And we are huge in respect of both. So we have taken away from the aviation sector. We have taken that away from the World Meteorological Organization.
And that's where we wrap this week's edition of the show. Until I come your way next time, remember, together we can build a sustainable world. I am Esther Mokwariola, but I leave you with a tour of various historical sites and locations in the city of Baku. This is Haidar Aliyev Museum Center in Baku, the city of the winds. And this gigantic edifice captures the history of the country's first president, Haidar Aliyev, and it was built in just 5 years. I'm here at the Waste to Art Museum in Azerbaijan, and as you can see behind me, these are waste products that are being converted into art for all peoples around the world to visit, and it is a one way to convert waste into valuable items of art.
We have created this museum to promote a responsible approach and also to keep cleanness of our environment. And this exhibition called Create for Peace.
Okay, and then we move like this, right? Stop. Okay. Mind your knee, and don't move your hands, please. Okay. All right. Oh my God!
You have messed the pot up.